Yeah. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Cloudsoft Solutions. This is Srikanth. Today, we are going to discuss regarding what are the interview questions in AWS and what are the common interview questions we are going to face in AWS and how to answer those questions. First of all, thank you for everyone for tuning today. And I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. And this presentation, mostly we are going to cover like what are the interview questions mostly we are like facing today in the interviews, like for the 2 to 10 years of experience candidates. So what are the common interview questions we are getting from the AWS wise? Okay, so today we are going to discuss. So myself, Srikanth, total I have 15 plus years of experience in IT, and I have attended more than 1,000 plus interviews on AWS and DevOps. So today I'll share what are the most of the interview questions I have faced and how to answer those scenarios. So today we'll discuss. So coming to the common initial introduction questions, what we are going to get it from the AWS Vices. So what are your AWS what are the AWS services we have worked in your project, or what is your area of expertise in the AWS services? So we should able to explain what are the services we have worked from AWS wise. Okay. So for this, we need to answer uh, like we have worked with the AWS services IAM, VPC, EC2, EBS volumes, EFS, S3 buckets, RDS, Elastic Cache, DynamoDB. For monitoring, we have used CloudWatch. For auditing purpose, we have used CloudTrail, CloudFormation, Route 53, SQS, SNS, Lambda, Beanstack, and how AWS auto scaling works, Elastic Load Balancers, Lightsail, AWS Directory Service, and importantly, we need to tell EKS like Kubernetes Service, Elastic Kubernetes Service, ECS, Elastic Container Registry, ECR, and some of the DevOps services also like code commit, code build, code deploy, then code star. And for the CDN, we need to tell we have CloudFront, EMR, Elastic Map Reduce, some Redshift, Lambda, Glue. So these kind of solutions. And for the VDA wise, we have Workspace, AppStream, and API management like REST APIs, all those management through API gateway. And for the migrations like server migration, application migrations, database migrations, and billing wise, monitoring wise. So these are the important areas we should able to focus. So try to give like overview of what are the services we have worked on the AWS. So these are the important services we should able to tell, and like more knowledge on this also is required. Then what is the next question mostly we'll get is what are your roles and responsibilities? So for this, we should able to answer like I have worked with the provisioning of EC2 instances, VPC, most of the what of the services we have, those all the resources we have provisioned through Terraform or through CloudFormation or through CLI, console, or maybe programmatically using Boto3 kind of things. So these all the provisioning related we should able to tell. And we are responsible to monitor those infrastructure also. So we are responsible to monitor that infrastructure through CloudWatch, and we need to set up the alarms, and we need to monitor those alarms also, and we need to configure the dashboards. So these kind of monitoring also we need to tell. And optimization, security, how we are going to take the backups. So these kind of job roles also. And importantly, we should able to explain the troubleshooting related also. So if any issues have been there with the AWS services or AWS resources, how we are going to provide the support. So that kind of issues also related, the services also we should able to tell. So mostly it would be related to infrastructure provisioning, infrastructure monitoring, then troubleshooting the infrastructure, optimizing, and security. Then we need to take care like a SRE kind of job roles also. Backups, if any disaster happens, how we are going to restore. And what are the daily activities we are going to perform? So what are the AWS services we will work, and what are the daily activities, say in the 8 hours of your job, what are the main activities you are going to perform? Those kind of daily activities also. So we need to perform. In this session, I'm going to cover more from the AWS perspective. In the next scenarios, in the next videos, I will explain from the DevOps wise also. And another common question we will encounter from the cloud computing is, we should able to explain what is cloud computing, IaaS, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. So we would be getting these kind of basic questions also in some interviews. What exactly cloud computing, types of cloud computing like a private cloud, public cloud, community cloud, and what is IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS also. So like here, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. And they may ask you some services like say suppose if you go for a server, whether it comes under IaaS, PaaS, or SaaS, or we are going for a database, whether the database comes under PaaS or SaaS, or maybe I go for an ERP or application, whether that comes under PaaS or SaaS. So like this, they may give some examples. We should categorize them to which category it belongs. Then, like we should able to explain some of the EC2 related also. So that means like basic what is an EC2 instance, and most of the EC2 terminology like what is AMI, then EC2 regions, then available zones, security groups, tags. So the basic EC2 terminology related like security groups, and what are the types of inbound and outbound rules we are going to configure, what is key pairs, then like what are the meta tags we are going to use, what are the types of instances, and different purchase plans also, how we are going to purchase those plans. So these all the basic interview questions also we are going to get it from the EC2. Then another question we are going to get is how we are going to increase the size of EBS volumes. So I want to increase my Linux VM or Linux instance size, or I want to increase Windows VM size. So what are the steps we are going to perform? And maybe regarding the EC2 itself, we would be getting some questions regarding the how we are going to perform the vertical scaling and horizontal scaling also. We would be getting some questions. So hence we should able to explain what are the differences between vertical scaling and horizontal scaling also. Then like regarding the AWS global infrastructure, we are going to get what are the regions, what are the available zones, why we need to go for multiple regions, why we need to go for available zones. And in that global infrastructure itself, we have edge locations, then we have wavelength locations, and local zones. So what are the use cases why we need to go for these kind of global infrastructure also we should able to tell. Okay. Then there may be question related to well architecture framework also. So what are the principles we have in the AWS well architecture framework? Some of the interviews are asking regarding that. That's the reason as we have the AWS architects or AWS admins, definitely we need to know what are the AWS architecture or well architectured framework. Then like better to brush up related to that well architecture framework also. Then what are the AWS storage wise? So mainly the services we have is EBS. EBS stands for Elastic Block Storage. So there would be the questions related to EBS versus EFS or EBS versus S3, and mostly why we need to use, what are the use cases, why we need to go for EBS, why we need to go for EFS and S3. And one more common question is they're asking, say, suppose for the EC2 instances, we are using EBS volumes, but there would be some questions are getting whether we can use EFS volumes and S3 buckets also. So what is that meaning is whether we can use EBS or EFS volumes, EFS or S3 volumes in order to launch our EC2 instances. So there are some questions we are getting related to. We are getting some questions related to say instance wise how we can use EFS and S3 buckets. And definitely like we have some questions related to IAM related, VPC. These all the questions also we'll discuss. So then like one more uh, how to change the key pair. So suppose client may ask you one scenario, we lost our key pair, then how to change the key pair? Otherwise, how to change that, or if you forget the key pair, how to connect to that instance? There will be some questions related to how we are going to connect to the instance if we lost the key pair. Then how to migrate the EC2 instance from one region to another zone, or maybe in another way, one subnet to another subnet, or one region to another region, or one account to another account also. So how we are going to migrate? So for most of them, the solution is we need to use the AMI. So from our instance, we are creating our own AMI, and from that AMI, we can copy that to another region, or we can give the permissions to another account. From that, the user is going to connect to those instances, or we can provision from that AMI in another regions also. Then mostly for the Windows, we lost our key or we lost our admin password. Then they may ask some questions. Is it possible to reset the Windows password also? So these are all the normal questions we are getting from EC2. Okay, so then definitely there will be questions related to auto scaling. What are the types of auto scaling we have? Like mostly we have vertical scaling and horizontal scaling, and how we are going to perform those vertical and horizontal scaling also we are going to discuss. And if you want to take a backup of your EC2 instance, so what is the strategy you are going to use and how you are going to take the backups? And if any disaster happens, how we are going to restore that also? So we are going to get some questions. So what is your backup strategy for the production servers and how you are going to restore if any disaster happens and what is the a retention period? So these all the questions we will get from the backup wise also. And some questions related, say suppose we provision the instances through GUI, but there would be some questions related to can we provision the resources through CloudFormation and Terraform also. There may be expecting some questions. Definitely we should say yes for both. CloudFormation also we have use and Terraform also we have use. And just like how we took the backup for EC2 instances, automatic backups we can configure even for RDS also. Then what is the RDS retention period for the backups and how to restore if any disaster happens from the RDS wise also, there would be some questions. And coming to RDS, so we can use the traditional kind of software, so installation kind of databases, but what are the advantages we are going to get through RDS? That means using a path-based service like RDS, what are the advantages we are going to get over the traditional database? So these questions also we are going to get it. Okay. So then even what is the snapshot lifecycle policy also. So that means for the AWS EC2 instances, so what is the meaning of snapshots? The state of the VM we can preserve by taking a snapshot. And one more scenario is automatically we can schedule the snapshots or we can delete the older snapshots through snapshot life cycle policy, or snapshot policies also are very important. We should able to explain instead of taking the snapshots manually using the snapshot life cycle policy, automatically we are going to provision. Okay, so then these related questions also we would be getting. And like what are the benefits of RDS over the like traditional kind of databases is managed service from the AWS, provisioning everything handles databases very well with the very less administrative efforts. And most of the high available kind of solutions also there, easy to scale up also, backups, everything would be taken care by RDS itself. So that is the main advantage to use PaaS-based services over infrastructure as a services. Then, like there will be some questions related to how you are going to optimize your AWS infrastructure and how you are going to reduce like maybe the charges, what are the best practices you will follow, and how you can optimize your AWS infrastructure. And related to the security related also, how you are going to improve the security for your AWS, some of the security related services also we should able to tell. And those best practices also we should able to tell. So these all the AWS security services I have used. These all the AWS security policies we have enforced in our company to provide the security. Then, like how to connect to Linux instance or maybe Linux to Linux, Windows to Windows, and how to copy the files. So these kind of basic questions also we may get it. Then, like in the IAM wise, like we are going to enable MFA. MFA stands for multi-factor authentication. We should able to explain how to enable MFA for the IAM users. And in this IAM user itself, you would be getting one more question. If any of the user forget his password, how to reset that IAM password? Then another important question is IAM related, IAM users, IAM groups. Then what are the differences between user versus role or user versus group? Why we need to go for that? And policies, IAM policy types also. There would be some questions. IAM policies also. Like here we have the what are the IAM roles, users, groups, policies, and what are the types of IAM policies also we will have some questions. And coming to ELB, ELB stands for load balancer. So everyone, it's mandatory question like what are the types of load balancers we have and what are the use cases why we need to use network load balancer, application load balancer, gateway load balancer, and classic load balancer, advantages, disadvantages, use cases, all this we should be able to explain. And we can attach a load balancer to an auto scaling groups also. Then how to attach that auto scaling and load balancer. And in this scenario, we should able to explain how we are going to deploy a high scalable application using the AWS services. And in order to perform the auto scaling, so how we are going to use the auto scaling and what is the strategy of your auto scaling and what criteria you are going to scale up and scale down and what are your minimum, maximum and desired number of instances we have configured in our project. So these also we need to set up. Then, like there would be questions related to what is an AMI, what is the snapshot. This may be in the EC2 basics itself, they may ask. Then we want to execute some scripts or we want to execute some commands at the time of EC2 launch itself. For that purpose, we can use the user data. So that means they may expect the answer like user data, but at the time of launching itself, we want to run some automation scripts or we want to run some commands. Then we should able to tell we are going to use user data in the advanced options of the instance, and that user data is going to execute at the launch of the instance. And there may be questions related to if any of the like if any of the instance we configure the user data and that user data is not running, then how to troubleshoot also. That means how to check the logs and where the folder where we need to check the logs. So this kind of troubleshooting also we need to tell. And what are the types of IAM policies like managed policies, inline policies, or maybe custom resource policies or resource specific policies. So these all the types of IAM policies also we should able to explain. So mostly we have the types of load balancers we have is classic load balancer, network load balancer, application load balancer, and we have a new load balancer called as gateway load balancer also. And we should able to explain network load balancer versus application load balancer also. Mostly network load balancer works at the layer 4, whereas application load balancer works at the layer 7. TCP UDP data can be accessible through network load balancer. HTTPS level we can manage the load balancing using application load balancer. But path-based routing, URL-based routing, or maybe content kind of driven based on the header, like these kind of load balancing conditions. If you want to enforce, then better to go for application load balancer. Other than HTTPS, we want to load balance our applications, then we need to go for the network load balancer. Network load balancer, the backend targets may be EC2 instances or those IP address or Kubernetes are supported, but Lambda is not able to do the load balancing. If you have the Lambda also as the target groups, then definitely we need to go for application load balancer. And static IP address to the load balancer is not possible for the application load balancer. You want any static public IP, then better to go for network load balancer itself. And network load balancer can handle millions of requests, whereas application load balancer is not able to bear the millions of requests also. Millions of requests are not able to bear by application load balancer. Whereas Lambda as the targets can be accessible to the application load balancer, path-based routing, URL-based routing, and based on the header wise also, like the condition wise also, we can do the load balancing. We can integrate with web application firewall, Cognito kind of things. And at the load balancer level, we can configure TLS or SSL kind of offloading also. How to configure those settings also, we need to work. How to configure those kind of like a TLS termination, SSL offloading related questions also we would be getting. Okay, so then how to attach a load balancer to the auto scaling groups also, and we have the scaling policies and based on the what metrics like CPU utilization, disk IO related, or load on the load balancer. So based on these metrics, we are going to perform scale out and scale in. Okay, so then here we have the different policies also, target base or maybe like a simple scaling, manual scaling, scheduling. So these kind of things also. And there would be some questions related to AWS CLI also. So how to configure the AWS CLI, what are the details we are going to provide through AWS CLI, and where those AWS credentials are storing, and some of the AWS CLI commands also in order to provision the resource, maybe for EC2, VPC, or S3 related, how we are going to manage those resources through AWS CLI. So AWS CLI is one of the command line tool in order to provision the AWS resources. Then, another very important service and most of the questions we will get from the interview is AWS VPC. So what is AWS VPC? It provides our own virtual networks in the AWS cloud. So maybe we may call as virtual private cloud. Our own customized networks, our own design of networking can be possible. Then, by default, for every region, AWS is providing default VPC, and we are going to use that itself by default. But in the real time, we are going to create our own VPCs also. Then there would be some questions why we need to go for the custom VPCs. Means by default, AWS is providing the default VPC for every region, and they are providing default one public subnet for every zone. Why we need to go for our own VPC and subnets also, there would be questions. And definitely before starting VPC concepts, we need to know networking basics like what is IP address, IPv4, IPv6, differences between IPv4 and IPv6, IPv4 classifications, like reserved private ranges. Say, IANA has specified some of the reserved private ranges. We should have knowledge on those. And mandatory, we need to understand what is CIDR blocks. So we need to have good knowledge on the CIDR blocks, and there would be some questions regarding the CIDR calculators also. So that is the reason, definitely we need to understand the CIDR blocks. And before CIDR blocks, we have subnet mask. Now we no need to worry about the subnet mask. Then what is the subnet mask also is very, very important. And forward lookup, reverse lookup. So those kind of basic networking level troubleshooting also we should able to know. Ping, telnet, netstat, iostat, vmstat. Then maybe like NS lookup kind of commands, trace routes, some basic networking related troubleshooting also we should have the knowledge. Then another important from the VPC is what are the VPC components you have worked. So that's maybe VPC, subnets, internet gateway, route tables, or NACLs, egress internet gateways, NAT devices. In the NAT devices, we have NAT instances and NAT like gateway, then VPN gateways, transit gateways, VPC endpoints. So these all the basic resources mostly we are going to use in the AWS. We should have a good knowledge in all these services. Then another very important FAQ is what are the differences between internet gateway and NAT gateway? Okay, so internet gateway is to make it public and it is going to give the internet also to those instances. Whereas NAT gateway, it won't give the public access. It is going to provide only, it is providing only like internet to those private missions. And another question is like differences between NAT gateway and the NAT instance. Because AWS supports two types of NAT devices. One is NAT gateway and the second one is NAT instance. Whereas NAT gateway is like managed by AWS. NAT instance, we can customize those security groups, all those. Managed service is NAT gateway. We can manage our own as a resource. That instance, in your environment, you tell we are managing NAT gateway itself instead of NAT instance. Then definitely, so what is the route table we need to understand? And for the different use cases, say suppose we have attached a internet gateway, VPC peering, NAT gateway, transit gateway, then how we are going to configure those routing tables also we require good knowledge. So what is the concept of the routing table is some set of routing rules we have, and based on those rules we have enforced at the router, like the traffic is going to be redirected to the VPC. Then by default in the default route table, by default for every VPC, one main route table would be created. In that VPC CIDR block is going to use one implicit router. So using that within the VPC, the communication is going to happen. The scope of the VPC is within the region. The scope of the subnet is zone level. At the subnet level, we have the at the zone level we have the subnets. At the region level, we have the VMs. Sorry, VPC is at the region level. Then like maybe VPC quotas also. How many maximum number of VPCs we can create, how many subnets we can create, how many CIDR blocks for IPv4 we can create, CIDR blocks for IPv6, how many you create, how many security groups we can create, how many like security group rules we can add to one security group or NAT kind of gateway. So these are the questions we are going to get it from the VPC wise. And another important one is like VPC endpoints. So we have the VPC endpoints, two types of endpoints also, interface level and gateway level. And there would be some use cases also. A private subnet EC2 instance want to access any of the path-based services, how the communication flow is going to happen also we should able to explain. And definitely there will be some questions related to VPC peering also. So how the VPC peering is going to happen and what are the prerequisites for the VPC peering, what are the business use cases will go for VPC peering also. There would be some questions. Then another important question we will get is NACL versus security group. So NACL stands for Network Access Control List, and security groups are the firewall rules at the AWS level. At the instance level, we have is that security group, and at the subnet level, mostly we are going to enforce is the NACL. Okay, so whereas which are stateful and stateless, which having allow and any kind of rules, and at what level those are able to manage. These all the differences we should able to explain. Then NAT gateway versus NAT instance, why we need to go for our own custom VPCs, and what are the best practices you have used to design the VPC network. Then what are the default VPC endpoints, VPC peering related, how the acceptor and receiver is going to configure, how we are going to update our route tables to work with this VPC peering. So these all we require the knowledge. And additional to this, definitely there would be a question related to how you are going to connect on-premises resources with the AWS wise. There would be some questions related to how you are going to connect site-to-site VPN kind of thing, and definitely why we need to use transit gateways. So those kind of transit gateway related and site-to-site related also, we should able to answer some questions, and how we are going to establish on-premises networks also we need to able to explain. Then like we would be definitely having some questions related to Route 53. So what is the DNS, how DNS works, DNS records, then DNS queries, forward lookup, reverse lookup, NS lookup command. So these are the basic DNS we should have a knowledge. Okay, then what is Route 53? Why it is called as Route 53? DNS port numbers, what are the DNS records we have, and how internet works. So this is also one of the common interview questions. Like you type one like a domain name or URL in your browser, then how that web page is going to open or that website is going to work. So those all the steps we should able to explain. So those all the steps also we need to explain those. Then like there would be some questions related to Route 53. What are the hosted zones and what are the types of hosted zones? So for one domain, the group of all the DNS records, we are going to group it as the hosted zone. And those types of hosted zone is we have public hosted zone and private hosted zone. And additional to this, definitely we should able to explain DNS records. So some of the popular DNS records are A record, AAAA record. Then we have the like a C name, or maybe we have a MX record, pointer, start of authority, name servers. These all like when we create a hosted zone, we are going to get two records by default. One is name servers, second one is start of authority. Then additional to this, some other DNS records also we are going to use. And it's mandatory, we should able to understand why we are going to use the A record, AAAA record. And in the AWS environment, we are going to get one more called as alias also. And additional to hosting of DNS roles, what Route 53 can do. We can register the domains also, traffic monitoring also we can do, failover kind of things also we can do. So we need to able to explain what are the routing policies we have. So we have the different routing policies we have. Okay, so we have the different routing policies like simple routing policy, weighted routing policy, or maybe latency base, geolocation, failover base. So these are the different type of routing policies we have: geolocation, alias base, or maybe weighted, multi-value answer. Okay, so these which routing policy we are going to use in our environment. So you can tell we are going to use a failover kind of routing policy. That means you have one primary region, second one is secondary region. If the primary region is failed, then the DNS level, it's going to redirect the traffic to another failover region, because the load balancers are only at the region level. If you want to do the replications for the multiple regions, then definitely we need to use load balancing at the uh, multi-region level or global site level is going to happen through Route 53. So definitely these all the routing policies, we should have good knowledge. Okay, so then already we discussed like what are the storage services we have, like EBS, EFS, S3 related, and those differences also the use case wise we should able to explain. Then another important is EBS storage types. We have like GP2, GP3, like in general purpose, IO1, IO2 in the provisioned, or we can have the magnetic kind of things. So those all the different type of SSD solid state drivers, hard disk drivers, magnetic kind of drivers. What are the different EBS volume types and which one is recommended to suggest to the client, how much size we want, all those also we need to have the knowledge. And for the snapshot level, like how to take the backups of the snapshots, so those kind of roles also we need to go. And coming to S3 bucket, so what type of S3, like which type of storage it is supporting, and will be questions related to like S3 object, why it is called as object level storage, then S3 snapshot, S3 lifecycle policy, S3 versioning kind of thing, how we can host a static website using S3 bucket. All these questions we are going to ask. So how we have discussed that S3 also in one video. Go through that video also. And definitely there will be some questions related to S3 storage classes also. So what are the types of storage classes? What are the use cases why we need to use? So we have the storage classes like standard, or maybe express one zone, or standard IA, one zone IA, glacier, deep archive, or glacier instant retrieval, or we have like intelligent tiering and outpost, like for the outpost we can use locally also we can keep the data. So these are the different classes also we should able to tell. And definitely we need to able to answer, like already in the snapshots we have the lifecycle policy, and even at the bucket level also we have lifecycle policy. So that kind of lifecycle policy also we should able to explain in order to transfer the files from like one storage class to another storage class, the transition of storage classes in order to reduce the cost, and the expiration of objects also we can enforce. That expiration of objects also we can enforce at the bucket level using the lifecycle policy. Then how encryption is going to happen at the S3 bucket level also we should able to explain. What are the different type of encryption levels, and versioning also we need to able to explain. And the data replication should be done across the multiple regions. That's also we should able to explain. Previously, S3 is S3 is one of the global kind of service. Now they made it region specific service itself. Some region service itself, and some of the S3 CLI commands also we should have knowledge, and how to manage the S3 resources through Terraform also. S3 resources from Terraform. that replication also we need to enforce. Then definitely we should have a knowledge on like how we are going to give the cross account access. Say using the cars, cross origin resource sharing should be done. So we should have a good knowledge on another IAM account user. I want to give the permission to my like S3 bucket, how to give the access. And another use case is I have an EC2 instance in a private subnet. In a private subnet, I have an EC2 instance and this want to access S3 bucket. Okay, so how we need to give the permissions at the private subnet because it doesn't have an internet, but still that S3 bucket it should be able to access. So these are the questions we are going to get it from S3 wise. So definitely we need to give how we are going to give the cross origin kind of resource sharing and how we are going to give the permissions for VPC private endpoint to, like that means you have an EC2 instance in a private subnet. We don't have internet, but still that access should be given to that S3 bucket. Okay, so these are all the questions we are going to get it from the S3 wise and S3 storage classes also we should able to tell and how the billing is going to work with the S3 level also we require good knowledge. And another common question people will ask us from the S3 wise is in the serverless kind of application deployment, in order to host the static websites, we are going to use the S3 buckets. In order to host the static websites, we are going to use the S3 buckets and those how we are going to host the static website using S3 buckets also we are going to discuss. So that steps how we are making a static website using S3 buckets. We need to copy all our HTML data to there. We need to configure the index.html, error.html, and we need to make the public access. Then one bucket policy we need to enforce. If you do these all the changes, then only your static website is going to add. And that static website, we are going to link to, we are going to link to Route 53 also. And if you go for a serverless application without requiring any web server, we can deploy our application logic in the S3 itself. The backend business logic would be running in the serverless is Lambda. So that kind of serverless application also we should have a knowledge. Okay, so then definitely there would be the questions related to S3 lifecycle policy and some scenarios regarding the S3 versioning and what is object lock, what is object lock in the S3 also, and how we are going to deploy a static website using S3 buckets, and how a private subnet instance can access the S3 bucket, and how other IAM users also can access our S3 bucket, and what is S3 Glacier, and Snowball also, why we'll use Snowball like advantages, disadvantages, size. Okay, so these all we need. Okay. So versioning also is one of the best practice we can suggest. Then there would be some related the questions related to migration also. Definitely we should say, yes, I have involved even in the migration kind of activities. Then in that we have on-premises, our servers are virtualized like maybe using vSphere or VMware ESXi server or Citrix Gen servers. Then how we are going to migrate those on-premises servers to cloud also. So we need to tell a use case. On premises, we have a VMware vSphere, we have a VM, and that VM we want to migrate to EC2. Or I want to locally I have a Gen server, I want to migrate to EC2, or I have a Hyper-V. So among these three hypervisors, we should able to choose one, and we should explain what are the migration steps, what are the migration assessments, post-migration steps, which migration strategy we have used. So these all everyone should be able to explain. Then instead of migrating the servers, we should able to tell how you are migrated the data, or how you have migrated your applications, or how you have migrated your Kubernetes, databases. So these kind of things also we should able to tell. So definitely we need to use the database migration service in order to migrate the databases from on-premises to cloud also. Then another important question is like interviewers, they're expecting if there is a requirement to host a three-tier or entire kind of web-based application in the AWS, how you are going to design and what are the different ways of AWS services you can use in order to deploy a three-tier kind of application. For this, first we need to tell from the VPC wise and how you are going to maintain the subnets, public subnets, private subnets, and always make sure they have spread across the multiple zones, and where we are going to keep the database servers, application servers, how we are going to auto scale them, and how you are going to attach them to the load balancers, and finally how you are going to this with the link this with the like Route 53, and for the security wise we can use web application firewall, CDN, like we need to use the CDN also to optimize the delivery using CloudFront, Cognisho, SNS, SQS, SCS. These all the services also we should tell like how we are going to host the application. But this is the traditional way of deploying an application. Otherwise, we can use Beanstack. If you don't want at all as servers, then we can use the Lambda also to deploy the applications. If it is a microservice base, we can use ECS or EKS also to deploy the applications. Then definitely there would be some questions related to CloudWatch. So what are the metrics you are going to watch, and how to export your logs from EC2 to log groups, and what are the dashboards you have configured, what are the alarms you have configured, and how you have integrated with the like notifications using SNS. So these are all the questions, and everyone should able to explain 15 to 20 metrics names. So these metrics we are going to monitor. So these kind of questions also there would be there from the interview. And what are the alarms also we have configured, and how to configure the CloudWatch agent also, the differences between basic metrics and how we are going to get the detailed metrics, advantages, disadvantages of traditional monitoring solutions, and CloudWatch wise what are the advantages we have, and how to configure a custom dashboard, and how to configure the SNS notifications also. We are going to get the questions from CloudWatch. And for the administrative events tracking, we are going to use the CloudTrail. So interviewer may ask one scenario, someone deleted some instance or someone has performed some administrative activity, then they will tell you how you are going to identify who did that. So for that purpose, we are going to use the CloudTrail. So CloudTrail is for administrative event tracking, whereas CloudWatch is for the monitoring of the AWS resources. Monitoring of the AWS resources we are going to perform. So definitely we should able to tell some use cases for migrating of our data from AWS, sorry, on-premises to cloud, and application data, servers migration, then how the database migrations also, and in the Kubernetes we have on-premises Kubernetes, how we are going to migrate to EKS clusters also, and how to design the three-tier kind of applications using the different AWS services, or serverless or microservice kind of architectures also we should able to explain. And in the most of the interviewers, they're asking that architecture diagram also we should able to keep. It's definitely we need to start from the VPC wise and subnets, all those VPC resources also we should able to explain them. then CloudWatch and CloudTrail related also, and how to configure the CloudWatch alarms, and how to get the detailed logs, and how we can monitor. By default, we don't get the memory related usage, but client is asking memory related or any custom application log data I want to retrieve. These all the questions also. And from the VPC wise, we have the flow logs. So what is the VPC flow logs, and how we are going to configure at the subnet level, network interface level also. There would be the questions in the CloudWatch level. Then definitely for the IAC, we have the CloudFormation and Terraform. We should tell both we have worked. Then in the CloudFormation, like what is the CloudFormation, the template structure, what is the syntax of that template, and what are the contents of the template, what is the stack set, change set, what is the drift. So these all the related questions also we are going to get it from CloudFormation. And definitely we'll have the questions related to CloudFormation versus Terraform, advantages and disadvantages also we need to able to explain. And how you are going to configure the stack policies, and if any failover happens in the stack level, what are the settings we are going to configure, and how we are going to integrate with the SNS wise also. And if you want to perform any change, how to perform the change sets, and if any drift happens, how we are going to maintain the drift also. Like we should able to answer from the CloudFormation wise. Then, like definitely we need to tell some of the security related services also from the AWS wise, like maybe IAM at the VPC level. We have like a VPC level. We need to provide NACL security groups, then DDoS kind of protections. How we are going to enable, and AWS Shield, AWS Security Hub, Guard Duty kind of services, AWS Config. So how you are going to use the security also, and most of the certificates like certificate manager, KMS related, firewall, web application firewalls, inspector, so the guard duty, security hub. These all like most of the AWS related security services also we should able to explain our job roles. Okay, say from the CloudFormation wise, what is the CloudFormation template, and what is the designer CloudFormation designer, what is the stack, what is the stack set, and what are the contents of a CloudFormation template, and how CloudFormation is differ from Terraform, advantages, disadvantages of both the IAC solutions, and why we need to go for a CloudFormation, and we can use programmatically, but what are the advantages of using CloudFormation, and which scripting it is supporting, like JSON or YAML, both are supported, and contents of those, what are the parameters and output variables, why we need to use the output variables in the CloudFormation. And definitely we have two services, like CloudFormation is an IAC solution. Beanstack can be used for the deployment of our applications, like which are related to PHP, or maybe we have .NET, Java, Go language, Python. So these kind of applications automatically we can deploy using Beanstack. But Beanstack works with the pre-configured environments itself, whereas CloudFormation can be deployed to most of the AWS resources. IAC can be performed. Okay, so definitely we should have basic knowledge on the Beanstack also. In the Beanstack also, backend, whatever the AWS resources is required, Beanstack also will use AWS CloudFormation itself. Okay, says CloudFormation is using YAML. YAML stands for yet another markup language, or JSON. JavaScript kind of family background people will use JSON. YAML, we don't have even JavaScript background also. We can use the YAML kind of script. These all easy to understandable, human readable kind of scripts. Okay, then in the components of the CloudFormation template, the CloudFormation version, we have descriptions, we have parameters, we have mappings, then conditions we may have, and importantly, we are going to have the metadata, resources. Finally, we'll have the output data also. So those all we should able to explain. Then one or two CloudFormation templates also better to practice before going for an interview. Okay. So then, like, definitely we should able to explain the stack is some group of resources provision from the stack is a like group of resources provision from the CloudFormation within a one account and within a region. Whereas stack set is the group of resources have been provisioned across the multiple accounts, multiple regions we want to provision, then we are going to use the stack sets. And if any someone manually perform any changes which are managed by CloudFormation, then definitely through CloudFormation we'll get a drift. So then we should able to explain how we are going to handle the drift also. And definitely there may be some question, if you have any sensitive details like passwords or certificates, how you are going to pass those sensitive kind of details also. We need to store them from the AWS secret manager or from the parameter store. And from that, we need to retrieve those sensitive kind of data also. Okay. So then definitely there would be some security kind of job roles also, our responsibility itself from the AWS wise. And we need to provide the, so what are the security services we have worked, we should able to tell. And definitely there will be some questions. On top of our application load balancer, we are going to configure the WAF. WAF stands for Web Application Firewall. And what are the rules we have configured on WAF also. And and definitely for the security wise, we should have the knowledge on HTTP, HTTPS, SSL, TLS, and how you have configured TLS termination on our application load balancer also. Okay, so because it's easy to terminate that at the application load balancer level. So those questions also we should able to explain. And we can generate our own certificates, SSL certificates or TLS certificates from AWS certificate manager also. So then how to create those certificates from AWS certificate manager also we should have knowledge. And another scenario is how we are going to encrypt our EC2 data. So what is that meaning is like EC2 to EBS volumes, the data should be encrypted. But at the time of provisioning of an instance, we have not encrypted. Now today client is asking, I wanted mandatory the encryption between my EC2 to EBS volumes. And how we are going to encrypt the RDS and how the S3 bucket level. So these all the encryptions also we should have the knowledge. Okay, so how we are going to enable those encryption levels also, we require the good knowledge and AWS certificate manager, key management systems, and how we are going to pass the sensitive kind of details in the, like that kind of sensitive details also, how we are going to store. So we required good knowledge. Okay, so we required how sensitive details also we need to manage. So that's for that we are going to use the secret manager. For the certificates, we are using AWS Certificate Manager to generate the keys and all those. KMS also we are using. So these all the services also we require good expertise. And security wise, AWS Shield, and on top of VPC, how we are going to provide the flow logs or maybe DDoS protections, and AWS config, security hub, threat threat kind of like detection kind of things. These all the services we need to know. And mostly for the web-based applications, we are going to use the web application firewall and AWS firewall and these kind of differences also. And definitely we should have very deep knowledge on the how HTTP to HTTPS communication is happening, TLS, SSL, and TLS handshaking kind of things. These all we need to work. And how the SSL or TLS works, these all the basic level knowledge also we should have. Okay, so then definitely we should enable TLS termination at the application load balancer or network load balancer we are going to perform. Then To generate our own certificates, we are going to use AWS Certificate Manager. Normally, we need to generate our own self-signed certificates. Need to upload to certificate CSR, but those all we can do it from the AWS Certificate Manager itself now. Okay, so then encryptions also are very, very important from the client wise. At the time of instance provisioning, we have not enabled those encryptions. In the middle also, the client may ask us to enable the encryptions. Then how to do that also, we should have good knowledge. Then, like we should have like a ECR level, how we are going to pull the images, push the images, and ECS level also, how we are going to deploy microservice kind of applications using the ECS, and ECS versus EKS related, and what is the Fargate for the serverless kind of environments. Instead of using EC2 as the node groups, we are using Fargate. Okay, then what are the advantages of ECS compared to EKS? And in which scenario you'll go for ECS, in which scenario you'll go for EKS, and architecture of the ECS related, how you are going to deploy your applications into ECS, and if you have any sensitive related data, how you are going to pass that sensitive data, and how you are going to monitor those ECS applications, maybe from the CloudWatch, Container Insights, and how you have migrated your, say, 10 to 20% of the applications have been using ECS also, but very large scale applications, EKS. But we are getting even lot of scenarios or microservices itself have been used in ECS also. Okay, so definitely we should have good knowledge on the ECR, how to create the repositories, pulling, pushing, how we can manage the security of the images. All those also we should be able to take care. How to configure the authentications, permissions, and how to build an image, how to push to ECR, and from the ECR to ECS or EKS, how we are going to deploy that, and if any authentication issues comes, how to resolve. So these all we require the knowledge. Okay, so definitely we should have good knowledge on what is the Fargate advantages and disadvantages of the Fargate also we should be able to explain. And in the ECS, we have the terminology like task, service, cluster, then task definition, and the secret manager. So these also we should have the knowledge. So we should able to tell we have worked both with the ECS and EKS, whatever the client requirement, according to that we are going to deploy. Okay, so then we should able to tell previously we have the monolithic applications, but now those have been migrated into either ECS or EKS. On premises, we may have a Docker or Docker Swarm kind of environment. We should able to answer what are the differences between like Docker Swarm and ECS level, and ECS, EKS level also they would be asking the scenario. I'll explain one more video for the Kubernetes, EKS, ECS. I'll explain more details in another video. I'll explain that. Okay, and we can attach ECS also to an application load balancer for the high availability and elastic kind of features. How to do that also, there will be some questions. And for your ECS applications, we need to enable the CloudWatch and the Container Insights, metrics, not at the EC2 level. This is at the EKS and the ECS level also we need to enforce. Okay, so then we can enable cloud trial for the multiple regions also. And definitely with the beanstalk wise, you try to explain, we have deployed a old legacy monolithic PHP based application and try to explain those steps also. Then definitely like today, a lot of companies are using serverless kind of applications also. For that, we should able to explain what is AWS Lambda and what are the advantages we are going to get it to use the AWS Lambda wise also. Advantages, disadvantages of serverless, and what are the use cases like maybe for the data processing, for your website application deployments, for analytics kind of things, for DevOps related some automation, infrastructure automation, event driven kind of things, all we can do using Lambda. Okay. And what are the Lambda like platforms it supports? We should have a good knowledge on what are the platforms supported by Lambda, which versions of the platform also supported also we require a knowledge. And we need a knowledge on what are the Lambda layers, okay, and what are the disadvantages of using Lambda, and what are the challenges we face by using the Lambda, and how we are going to handle the exceptions, error handling also in the Lambda. What is the maximum execution timeout is 15 minutes is the maximum execution timeout for any of the function in the Lambda. How to manage or how to manage these kind of things also. And definitely another issue we have is a cloud start of the functions, how to reduce that kind of cloud start issues also. What are the limits, quotas, size wise, what are the limits, all those also we required. And definitely we need to load balance, we need to auto scale, we need to integrate with the other services like SQS, SNS, programmatical itself with the Lambda. These all though we required as of now very good knowledge. So we should able to tell we have not only microservice based applications deployed on EKS, we have one serverless application also. Definitely we should able to tell. So for that, Lambda also plays the vital role. So these are all the questions we are going to expect from the Lambda wise. So benefits is very it's a cheaper kind of thing. Okay, so then what are the Lambda layers, how to deploy those Lambda layers, and how we are going to handle the exception kind of things. Okay, so these also maximum execution timeout, and how to avoid this kind of things, and how to improve the coding levels also, and how to reduce like a concurrency and advantages also, and how to create a Python based, Node.js based applications, and how to trigger the different ways of how to trigger Lambda also. Instead of manually triggering that, maybe from the S3 events, or from API gateway, we are going to trigger, or maybe from the AWS config, some kind of schedule activities, or from the CloudWatch also, we'll try to trigger some real use cases for the Lambda. Then definitely at the VPC level, already I said how to enable on-premises network. For that, we need to go for VPN. And definitely in order to deliver the static web content, we need the CDN. So definitely how you are going to create a CDN distributions also for the S3 bucket or for the static website, how you are going to create the CloudFront distributions, caching mechanisms, or in the middle some changes need to be performed, how you are going to handle. So these kind of questions would be there from the CDN. What is the CDN solution from the AWS wise is CloudFront. So CloudFront is the service name. So we require good knowledge on CloudFront wise also. Okay. So then like maybe some DevOps related services like code pipeline. Instead of using Jenkins, we can use code pipeline. Instead of using GitHub, we can use code commit, code build, code deploy. So these services also one workflow we should have the knowledge. Okay, and how to integrate from the Jenkins instead of Terraform. We are using Assume CloudFormation. Try to integrate that steps from Jenkins to CloudFormation also. Okay, then in the Beanstalk, we should able to deploy high scalable, maybe a Node.js sample application, Python-based application, or Java application also. Okay, so then like VPN access, all these also we should able to provide. Definitely, we can integrate Jenkins with the EC2, S3 kind of things also. Some use cases they may be asking you. Then, like at the IAM level, one of the best practice we need to take care is we need to rotate the keys periodically. Then how to rotate the keys? Maybe we may need to tell some automation using Lambda or some other automation. Definitely, we should able to tell how you are going to rotate the keys also. And we using the AWS DevOps services like AWS code commit, code build, code pipeline, code deploy. We should able to deploy our application into Lambda or ECS, Beanstack. So these kind of use cases also. That means instead of using Jenkins or third-party tools, we are using the AWS inbuilt DevOps services itself, and we are going to perform the end-to-end CA and CD kind of operations also. For one of the end-to-end project, we should able to tell these use cases also. And AWS is providing one IDE that is called as Cloud9. So we should have a basic knowledge on the Cloud9 also. Okay, so then we should have AWS directory services. Instead of managing local AD, we can use the directory services and maybe AD connector kind of things. And AWS having a beautiful VDA solution called as AWS Workspace. So we have some videos in our channel for the AWS Workspace also. Just go through related to directory service, workspace, app stream to deliver the VDA itself applications also. Then in the RDBMS, we have RDS is the service. If you have NoSQL or Memcache clusters you want for your backend application caching, then we need to use the service called Elastic Cache. So we should tell we have already good expertise on provisioning the Redis Elastic Cache kind of clusters also. Elastic Cache is supporting Redis and Memcache engines, whereas RDS is supporting here Aurora, PostgreSQL, MariaDB, MySQL, MS SQL Server, Oracle, IBM DB2. See, these all the engines have been supported by RDS. Elastic Cache is supporting Memcache and Redis clusters. And we have one more serverless kind of NoSQL kind of database is there, that is DynamoDB. And instead of managing AWS directory service for the user authorizations and authentications, we have one serverless feature called as Cognito. So in the serverless application deployments, we are going to use S3 buckets, then API gateway, Lambda, DynamoDB, Cognito, SNS, SCS, SQS, CloudWatch, CloudTrail. Say here without requiring any single server also we can deploy our applications. Then AI wise, AWS is getting one SageMaker who has like a 0 to 3 years of experience. Try to get more knowledge on Lambda, SageMaker, Glue, data warehousing solutions. These all the API gateways, say front end kind of application deployment and mobile kind of application deployments. So that's who have 0 to 3 years of experience. If they focus, then definitely they can get the success in AWS also. And what are our roles and responsibilities also, like we should able to explain. So Beanstack versus CloudFormation also they will ask, and how you are going to use a serverless application deployment, AWS Lambda, AWS step functions, API gateway, all these real use cases also there would be questions. Advantages and disadvantages of the Lambda, and how to trigger a Lambda. Say in our use case, we are telling API gateway, we are going to trigger the Lambda functions. Okay, and we can attach Lambda functions also for the application load balancer. We can attach and we are going to redirect the applications also. And the code star, X-ray versus CloudWatch related questions. Okay, so then workspace, app stream. Okay, EKS. So in the EKS, ECS, Kubernetes, I'll explain one more video also. And the DevOps related also, I'll explain one more video. Serverless, Elastic Cache, Cognito. So Cognito is for the user authentication and authorization. Managing again a directory service is very expensive kind of thing. So that is the reason we are going to use Cognito. And DynamoDB is a serverless kind of NoSQL kind of database also. So mostly for the serverless applications, we are going to use DynamoDB and Cognito. Then definitely there would be the questions related to SQS, what are the types of queues we have, and if there is any of the queue have been failed, how we can track it. So these kind of SQS related questions also we would be there. And how to integrate that Lambda to SQS, SNS. So these kind of use case also we should able to do. And very important from the IAM wise is we need to understand the IAM roles. So we need to understand IAM roles also very well. And most of the machine learning, these all SageMaker is going to perform. Cloud9 is an IDA. Okay, so we have the different job roles like admin, solution architect, DevOps wise, security, backups. So these all wise we should able to tell our interview questions. So most of the interview questions from the AWS wise I have explained here. So here we have covered most of the frequent asked questions and how to prepare for those. If you're able to prepare all these questions, 100% you can clear from the AWS wise and DevOps wise, EKS, ECS, Terraform. These all I'll cover in the next videos. Okay, and make sure you practice all these questions, prepare your own way of answers, your way of solutions, your way of use cases, and how you have solved the most of the common challenges you have faced in the AWS. Then very easily we can crack. Okay, sure. Any questions if you have, you can share in the comments. I'll try to answer those. And if you found this video is helpful, don't forget to share it with your friends who are searching the job in AWS. And please share and subscribe. And if you have any questions, like just comment, I'll try to answer those. And for most of the AWS and DevOps related, go through the other videos also. Okay. So thanks for watching and good luck for your interviews. And I'll explain other DevOps, Kubernetes, Terraform, all those also I will explain in the next videos. Follow us for those next videos. Okay. So thanks for everyone.